Tell me about you and Dad.
I love to talk about your father. um, your dad is the most important person I've ever met in my whole life, and I can't imagine what it would be like if I hadn't met him and had the experiences that I've had. I joined a bowling league to meet a guy. Mima right away said, "Don't get into anything you can't get out of." And I said, "Don't worry about it." I was still living at home. I was 19 years old. And Susie Kaplan, whose boyfriend was in the service, and I just put our names in a league and said, "Put us on a team." And they put us on a team with your father and his two best friends. And I immediately liked him. Immediately. And I came home and I told Mima that there's a guy named Arnie on my bowling team and I hope he asks me out. And he did, and we started dating. And it led to a lot more than I ever expected would happen. I met him on his birthday, which was May 26th. He had just turned 20 years old. And I had scheduled a trip to go to Florida with my good friend Terry Syker at the time. And we were going to Florida, just the two of us, in August. And between May and August, I had fallen in love and I didn't even want to go. And I broke my cardinal rule because he took me to the airport and I swore I would never do this, but when I was leaving and I kissed him goodbye, I told him I loved him. And I told him first, and I said I would never tell anybody first that I loved them. But I knew that I loved him and I wanted him to wait that whole week till I got back. And it developed into what became the rest of my life. And my wedding day, we decided we were going to get married, and I got engaged on Valentine's Day after I met him. We were, he had slept over our house. My sister and I had beds that were catty corner, and my mother and father said he could sleep in that room as long as he was in Vicky's bed. And in the morning, he climbed into my bed and he gave me a Valentine gift. And we had decided that we weren't going to exchange Valentine's gifts. But I had a picture taken of myself for him, and I thought, what a cool gift. I'm going to give him a picture of me. And then he gave me, I wish I'd saved it, but it was the strangest ring box I had ever seen. There was a cardboard cutout heart, and in the middle of the heart was this cylinder. And when you opened the cylinder, there was what looked like back in the day a hair dryer that you would sit under when you got your hair done in the beauty salons on a stand. So there was a little stand and then a circular box that opened, and that's where the ring was. And he asked me to marry him, and I said yes. And I ran into my mother and father's bedroom. I knocked on the door and said, "I'm engaged, I'm engaged." And it was really, really exciting. And then we decided we were going to get married the following December, and we moved it up to August. And I was only 20 when I got married, but I knew I was very excited, and I knew I wanted my wedding to be blue, and I wanted a big, glorious wedding. And Vicky will tell you that I got my wedding and she didn't get to go to college because Mima said that she couldn't afford both and she gave me the wedding. So I didn't know that at the time, but I don't know if I'd have changed my mind because I'd always dreamt of a princess wedding. And I wanted blue flowers. And we went to the florist. I remember we went to the florist and I said I wanted blue flowers. And she said, it's really hard to do blue flowers. Let's do pink and blue. And I said, no, I don't want pink and blue because that's baby colors. And she said, it'll be so pretty. And I said, no, I just want blue. And of course, that day the flowers came in and they were pink and blue. And I found out afterwards that everybody said, don't tell Helaine, don't tell Helaine. But when I saw the flowers, I thought they were gorgeous. There was nothing that was going to ruin that day, and nothing did. It was all of my dreams answered. It was a really great day. And I'm trying to remember when Dad told me that when we met on the bowling league, he was on that league with his two very best friends. And one of his good friends, Jerry, said, I want to ask Helaine out. And Dad said, well, I want to ask Helaine out. And your father, as smart as he is, said, we're not going to let a girl ruin a friendship like we have. Let's flip a coin, and whoever wins can ask her out. And if it doesn't work out, then the other one can ask her out. And I'm really glad Dad won the coin toss because I hadn't even thought about going out with Jerry. And we're still friends with Jerry and Leo, who were his two best friends then. And I'd say maybe once every 2 years or so, because Jerry and his mate at this point, Leslie, live in Baltimore. When I go to Baltimore to visit Vicky, we'll see them. And every time Dad sees Jerry, he says, best 2 out of 3. But I've already told you about having children. We had, when we got married, we had no money. And Dad was still in school, and I was working as a secretary, and we were paying for him to go to, he was in graduate school in Washington, D.C., and he would drive there every single day and drive back, and we were paying for that. So we couldn't really afford a traditional apartment. We just didn't have the money. So we lived upstairs from a lady who rented out her second floor. And it was very, very small. And we sat on our bed to open the bureau that was across from the bottom of the bed because there wasn't room to stand there and open it. You had to sit. And we didn't have a kitchen table. We had a card table, and Dad put silver contact paper around the legs of the card table so that it would look like chrome. And we always had a tablecloth on it so that it looked like a real table. And we couldn't get our sofa up the stairs, so they had to bring the sofa in through the window with a pulley. And I remember the first time Bubby and Zadie came to see our apartment, Bubby told us after we were in a real apartment that she had cried in the car afterwards because she was so sad that we were in such a pathetic apartment. But we were determined to get married even though we didn't have any money, so we were fine with it. And we made it work, and it's, to me, the progression of where we lived and where we moved and what we did and how we worked and made things happen is kind of just there. When I think of your father, what's most important to me is that he's the best person I've ever met in my life. I can't describe what he's done for me. I don't know why he loves me because I am so difficult. But he really does, and I know that, and that's what keeps me going. He bugs the shit out of me. He sniffs, and I can't stand it, and he constantly teases. And because of that, we bicker. And we bicker all the time, and I don't like it. And I talked to him about it, and it's his personality. And when we went on our last trip, I said, we don't know any of these people. Let's not bicker because I don't want them to think that we're not in love. It, I think that's the part that gets me is that I know how much he loves me, but I don't think other people know how much he loves me because he's a teaser. And that's him. He's a teaser, he's a jokester, that's his personality. I know that's what he does, and that's upsetting to me, but I know how good he is. I know that he loves me. I know that he would do anything for me and our family. We went through some rough times, but it didn't matter because I was with him. Um, he's he's so special. As aggravating as he is, he's so special in so many ways. Um, I I just I feel like I've had the most amazing life because we've done it together and we're sharing. And I don't know what else to say.